What's up, NBT Nation? Good morning. Good Thursday morning. Here we have another NBT pop-up live, getting into the topic of where should leaders target their training efforts and how do leaders figure out where to target their training efforts. And I see this happen a lot where there's a bunch of leaders who don't even support training at all. That's a whole different subject. But even leaders who think, hey, I know I want more training in my organization. I know I need to really kind of unpack where to put training. I don't even know where to start. I don't even know how to get out of square one. And that's what we're going to unpack right now in today's pop-up live. What are 5 areas that leaders should be thinking about to target where to do the training? And we're going to unravel all that right now. So, NBT Nation, good pop-up morning to you. Hopefully you find this interesting. If you do, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so we can keep making content like this. A quick little bit of creator fuel, and we're going to dive into 5 areas where leaders can target their training effort inside the firm. See, we've got some people who have joined us for this NBT Live. Drop a chat. Let me know what's going on out there. Let me know if you're finding this helpful. So leaders, where do you target your training effort? Where do you focus and really get under the hood? Where do you do some more analysis? Where do you spend your time talking to your field level managers? Where do you spend your time talking to your frontline users so that ultimately you can zero in that training focus? 5 different areas. The first area to think about if you're getting started, you don't know where to start, onboarding / culture building. Onboarding / culture building. Onboarding is really where you can make some quick impact through the vehicle of training. And it's an area that is often overlooked. Onboarding in an organization is often reduced down to filling out compliance paperwork. Here's the paperwork you got to fill out for your payroll deduction or taxation or your benefits or whatever. And you end up, onboarding becomes, fill out this paperwork. There's the bathrooms. Friday is pizza night, whatever. And that's it. And that onboarding piece is a missed opportunity to start putting training about your culture, about how the organization works, how the organization functions together. What are the norms? What are the practices from a strategic level that are important inside that organization? What are maybe starting to do a little bit of pre-training? You can sometimes have onboarding just be specifically this carved out onboarding piece. Sometimes you can start to incorporate some training specific to the job role. But that onboarding, if you're a leader and you're trying to think, where do I even start with my training efforts? Start with onboarding. You can really start to impact culture. You can impact how the organization fits and works together. You can get everybody aligned to that right out of the gate. So if I'm a leader and I'm wondering, I don't even know where to start with training, this Adam guy is always screaming about training, look at your onboarding programs. Start there. That's number 1. Number 2, where do you get started with training if you're a leader in an organization? Talked a little bit about onboarding. Second area to look at, revenue generation. It's ain't rocket science. If you're a leader and maybe you have limited resources and you don't have defined training teams and you don't know where to get started with training, if I have to pick, I'm looking directly at revenue generation. What brings money into the organization? And that's where I want to target my training. And then when you're looking at that revenue generation, what creates it? What's going to create more of it? What's going to make the creation of that revenue even more efficient? What is going to help people bring in additional revenue streams? What is going to help people overcome whatever obstacles to revenue generations they might have? But what generates revenue in your firm and your organization? What are those drivers? How do you get more of it? How do you get it more quickly? How do you get it more efficiently? How do you help more people? How do you make it easier for your customers? How do you make it easier for your teams to make it easier for the customers? I mean, we could do weeks and weeks and weeks of discussion about what training you need to do to generate more revenue. But again, if I'm a leader and I don't even know where to start for sitting down and aligning a learning strategy and figuring out how training should work, or where do I want to put my support as a leader? Maybe I do have training teams, and as a leader, I want to put my energy behind supporting those training teams. One area to focus on is revenue generation. So, number one, if you don't know where to start as a leader of where to target the training in your organization, look at onboarding. After that, look at revenue generation. Both of those are really great areas to put your energy as a leader. Hopefully, you're enjoying this, NBT Nation. I see people coming into the live stream. If you're finding this interesting, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you're thinking here. The third area to think about and really target your learning in your organization and really think about crafting a learning strategy, and you don't know where to start. There's 1,000 different problems and you don't even know where to start, or maybe there's no problems and you don't know where to start. Revenue drag. You start with onboarding, that's an obvious spot. You start with revenue generation next, and then you look at what's a drag on your revenue. So that's things like what slows down your revenue generation, what depletes your profitability, what is causing your revenue generation to not be efficient, what is causing your revenue generation. Maybe it's warranties and returns and customer complaints are eroding your revenue generation. Maybe it's safety. You're having safety issues that are more a byproduct of your production, but ultimately is a drag on your revenue generation because either people are not producing, or if they are producing, they're getting hurt, which is causing all sorts of issues on the bottom line. What is the drag on your revenue? Maybe it's employee turnover. Oh, okay. Look, we can do a lot of different things there with training. Uh, we could look at maybe interviewing. You think, well, Adam, what the hell are you talking about interviewing? I thought this was revenue drag. Well, if you're not hiring the right talent, you're not going to generate enough revenue. It's ultimately going to be a drag on your revenue generation. So as you start to unpack and do some needs analysis, do some SWOT analysis, as you talk to your frontline leaders, as you really get under the hood, as you start looking at the data, what's slowing down and be a drag on your revenue generation? Those become obvious areas where training could be potentially part of a solution. Now, there may be other reasons why you're having drags on revenue. Maybe it's investments in infrastructure. Well, training's not going to help with that. Maybe it's regulatory issues or marketing efforts in the industry or something like that. Again, the training is not the magic wand that solves all your problems, but training could be a big component of why there is a drag on your revenue generation. That's where I would look for training if I'm going to use my capital as a leader, whether it be investments or time or my team's time. I'm looking at revenue drag. So where can you target your energy as a leader? Where can you target your support? Where can you target your investments? Where can you focus your teams? Start with onboarding, then look at revenue generation, look at revenue drag. All right, the fourth topic on what are some areas you could target for training as a potential solution if you're a leader in an organization. Here's another obvious place, maybe where you get started. You don't know where to go. You don't know how to get something going. Look at leadership training and professional development. Leadership training and professional development. That's a great area. If you're the senior leader, you're the founder, you're the owner, you don't know where to kind of get going with training. Leadership training is one of those foundational 101 level, never goes out of style areas to focus your energy. And the world is awash in leadership training. whether that be something that NBT helps you develop and put together specific to your firm. We can 100% help you with that. But there's a gazillion other leadership experts out there. You could build a really nice leadership development program using readily available tools, YouTube videos, all the different people that are out there, and build a leadership training program based on good foundational best practices of leadership specific to your firm. Build a really nice leadership or professional development program, and that's going to pay huge dividends. Good leadership leads to more revenue generation. It reduces revenue drag. It deals with employee turnover. It deals with long-term retention. It drives creativity. It makes your customers happier. I mean, eh, we all know good leadership training is important, right? Well, if you're just stumped on where to start with training in your organization, the basics never go out of style. Make sure your leaders are getting the training they need. Make sure your leaders are getting the support they need. Do they know how to deal with difficult conversations? Do they know how to deal with employee conflict? Do they know how to coach appropriately and help develop their teams? Not just tell people what to do, but really help people to grow and thrive and develop. Do they know how to do an effective one-on-one? Do they know how to do these core foundational leadership things? If they don't, that's an area where I would invest some of my capital as a leader, the senior leader in the firm. I'd focus on getting my leadership group sorted out and developed. All too often, leaders in organizations were the highest performer. They were the person who's been there the longest. They're the person who sucks up the most and is the best politically. But when you really look under the hood, are they good leaders? Mm. A lot of times, you'll have somebody that maybe is an up and comer in the organization. They're a rising star, and you want them to be tomorrow's leader. By putting a leadership training program together, you can help them get there in a more defined way, in a more process defined way. You can help them maybe get there quicker and not have to learn by making a bunch of mistakes like most of us have. So anyway, I'm going on and on. I think you're all on board with that idea. But if you're wondering, where do I even start to look? I only have so much energy to even think about training. If I'm the founder, if I'm the CEO, if I'm the top dog, I'm looking directly at my leadership training. I can get that sorted out. The other pieces start to fall in place. So there you have it. We have 4 of the 5 key areas I'd recommend you get started when you're thinking like, I don't even know where to get going with training. I've given you 4 great areas to dive into: onboarding, revenue generation, revenue drag, and leadership. If you start really looking into those areas, what can we do to improve? Where can we make advancements? What are our opportunities? Those are 4 really key areas that you can dial into to ensure that your training effort is appropriate. All right. The 5th area you've been waiting for, the 5th area. If I'm the senior leader and I'm like, I don't even know where to get started with training, I'm looking directly at turnover. I'm looking at talent loss. I'm looking at retention, however you want to phrase that. I'm going to target preventing turnover. And that's where I'm going to start thinking about, where do I invest my training effort? So that's looking at exit interviews. That's talking to people that have left and really getting good feedback. That's employee touch bases before there's turnover, before they leave your firm. Having a structured process of employee engagement so you're getting really good feedback. That's going and talking to your high performers and really figuring out what makes your high performers tick. What makes your high performers the high performers? And then how can we duplicate that to prevent turnover of somebody who's maybe newer or maybe somebody who's struggling a little bit? That's working with people that are struggling. And how do you bring them along? How do you give them some TLC? How do you give them some extra support so that they can grow and develop and thrive with your firm? That's talking to your frontline managers and having those real gut level discussions. What causes turnover in the organization? And let them tell you the answer. And you're probably not going to like some of them. Sorry. That's why you're in the leadership seat. Now, those frontline managers may, they're going to, well, we need to quadruple salaries and we need to give everybody a Ferrari and we need, ping pong tables and a 1-day work week. And, some of that feedback's not going to be actionable. But the more you open up that line of communication with your frontline leader, why are we losing people? That's going to tell you potentially where training could be part of the solution to stem the tide of people leaving your organization. It will tell you where you can maybe use training. Training's not a magic wand, as I like to say. But by really getting under the hood of why people are leaving the organization, it can tell you where do you put your training to stop that from happening the next time. All right. Another area to think about in terms of turnover. We talked about employee engagement. We talked about talking to your high performers. We talked about looking at your low performers. We talked about your frontline users, exit interviews for people that are leaving. You could also look at your performance development plans, your yearly reviews, your compensation reviews, however that's structured inside your organization. A performance review is a different process from training, but those performance reviews can start to tell you where you need to invest your training time. Number one, do your performance reviews and compensation reviews, does it specifically call out and frankly reward training effort? But when you're doing all these performance evaluations, are you capturing what do you need to succeed in your role? What would take you to the next level in your role? What sort of training can we provide you that's going to help you level up 10x? Whatever, however you incorporate, fold that into your performance development process, your performance review process. Are you capturing that data or does it go onto a form that then gets put in a file cabinet, either physically or in the cloud down in your HR group? Because if it stays buried there, it's pretty useless, isn't it? So don't overlook your performance evaluation process. That's to help you develop your talent, but you can pull from that. If you have 100 people in your organization, or whatever, 100 people in your organization, and 99 of them are telling you, if I had training that helped me unravel blah, 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 duh, guess where you need to target your training? It ain't rocket science. It's not that hard. So look at turnover in your organization. That is a great place to get under the hood, do some analysis, really be thoughtful, and that could help you on where you target your training. So we've looked at 5 areas here. Onboarding, such an important part. That first exposure to the organization is your chance to establish culture, establish norms, establish good best practices, really help people to understand how the organization ticks, and even maybe start to put some job role specific training together as part of that. But onboarding is where I would look at. It's a huge missed opportunity across most organizations. Number 2, if you're looking for where do I put my training? Revenue generation. What creates revenue in your organization and how do you set up training to generate more of it, generate it more effectively, generate it more efficiently, take revenue streams in new directions because of the training that is provided. Thirdly, I would look specifically at what is a drag on revenue creation in your organization. And that could potentially be a great source of future trainings, additional training programs, additional training resources. What's slowing down the creation of revenue in your organization? Next, 4th, leadership. Leadership is a subject that never goes out of style, and you can build a really great leadership program, and good leadership can help push your organization forward to drive revenue, profit, talent retention, make your customers happy, which is the ultimate goal. Leadership training inside the organization. If I had to start from ground zero, I'm looking directly at leadership training. And then lastly is turnover in employee retention, however you want to phrase that. If I'm a leader and I don't know how to get started with training in my organization, I'm looking directly at what causes turnover in my organization, or how can I prevent turnover in my organization. And again, you can unpack that. I've touched on a lot of little pieces for each one of these 5 areas, but you can unpack each one of those and really get under the hood, really get some good discussions going. So those are the 5 areas that I would dive into as the leader in the organization. Real briefly, I just want to touch in, how do you get into each one of those areas? Number 1, you got to have conversations. Frontline users, field managers, senior leaders. Hey, you call them into a meeting. I really want to unpack this area. I really want to look at training for this area. Have some strategy sessions, some workshops, some SWOT analysis, some open dialogue. But it all starts with communication to those key groups. Secondly, data. Facts and data drive everything. Get as much data in as you possibly can and really get under the hood. You can break down each of those 5 areas into some really great data. Most organizations are awash in data, facts, figures, dashboards, metrics. Use them and start just ticking off. What's the big one? What's the next biggest one? What's the next biggest one? And just start chipping away. So communication, data, asking questions is the next thing to kind of get started. As a leader, that's your role, right? Is to be inquisitive, to ask questions, to think about. I would take each one of these areas in specific to your organization, and I would just do a little sketch pad, 4 or 5 questions that you know in your heart of hearts you need to ask. Leaders out there, you know the questions you need to ask. Maybe you don't know training so much, and maybe you're not sure how to get started. You need a little bit of help there. But you know that question that's in the back of your mind, or it's in the heart of your hearts, that you've been meaning to ask your senior leaders in those 5 areas. Go ask them. Go ask those questions today. Hey, let's go for a walk. I want to kind of get into this subject a little bit more. So communication, data, ask questions, and then lastly, get feedback from your teams in those areas. Send them out with marching orders. Hey, I really want to look at what drives revenue generation in the organization. Really understand that at a deep level. Un, d- Really, really dial in what actually creates, do some value stream mapping to understand what really creates revenue. And as you unpack that, you're going to see training showing up as one of the buckets there. Now, there's going to be 1,000 other things. Maybe you need to add headcount. Maybe you need to reduce headcount. Maybe you need to do some more product development. Maybe you need to do a product launch. That's different stuff. But training is going to be one of those buckets as you start unpacking those different areas. So just some things to get started there. What 5 areas, if I was the senior leader in the organization and I wanted to focus more on training, what 5 areas would I do if I was given the magic wand? Onboarding, revenue generation, revenue drag, leadership, and employee loss or turnover, retention. Those are the 5 key areas that I would start today looking at for training. Now, there's a million other ways to look at it. There's a million other areas to dive into. If you're the leader in the organization and you want to get started doing more training in the organization, where would you start? Let me know. Leave me some comments down below. If you found this effective, give it a thumbs up. I see a couple out there. Subscribe to the channel so we can keep making great content. And as always, you can visit noboringtraining.com. That's noboringtraining.com. That's the home of NBT. Lots of great resources, and it's separated out by resources for the trainers themselves and resources for the leaders who are looking to align learning strategies to drive big picture outcomes in the organization. Thanks so much for joining me on a random pop-up live. A lot of people popping in. Great to see. Thank you for the thumbs up that are out there. Hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for joining me, and we'll be back soon with an NBT Live. Thank you so much.